What's up, Hollow Cult? We are back, and it is another wonderful Wednesday here at the Night Shift. Hope everybody's having a wonderful week and trucking through their work weeks. We are here with a very special guest tonight, the Chiller Queen herself, Miss Avery Warner. If everybody would
Hello,
give her a
everybody.
warm Hollow Cult welcome, that would be wonderful. How is
Hello.
everybody?
I'm
Have you
doing
been? Have you been,
amazing.
Avery?
Oh, I've been busy, but been amazing. Since we last talked, a lot has changed, you know?
Yeah.
When's the last time we did an episode together? It was like a year ago,
Yeah, it's
right?
been a minute.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
And you guys, I think this whole thing that you guys are doing with the live, like that whole intro with the music, it got me in the zone. Like I felt like I was gonna be abducted soon. I loved it.
It's all the hype.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. It's good to hear that you're doing good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been over the year. I mean, obviously, like you guys know, building a podcast and going through all the things. How long have you guys had your podcast?
4 years.
Yeah,
4 years?
it'll be 5
Yeah.
years in March, so about 4.5.
Damn, yeah. I mean, it's a slow progression,
Yes.
right? You just gotta
Yes.
be consistent. I've had mine for almost 2 years now, and yeah, just going through the hurdles.
Yeah.
But it's
It's
been
it's tough.
fun.
It is fun.
It leads me on these crazy journeys, especially like the one that I'm gonna talk to you guys about.
Yeah. We're excited to hear because we did, like we were talking about just a minute ago, we did a 4-part deep dive into Mr. Bledsoe and his experience.
Yeah.
And then I saw you post the other day how you went and met him.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. I actually going to see Ryan Bledsoe in 3 weeks.
Okay.
And because I live here in North Carolina. So they're both in North Carolina, only like 3 hours from me. And that's kind of why this whole thing was able to happen, because when I heard the story of Chris Bledsoe, it was actually on the Tinfoil Hat podcast.
Okay.
Love that show.
Yeah.
And so I was listening to him on there, and I was listening on my headphones, and all of a sudden they started talking about, like presenting these orbs, and then all of a sudden, like some of these orbs had like pictures of faces in them and stuff. And I'm like, man, I got to go find the video of this because I need to see if this is even legit. So then I pull up the video, I'm watching the video, and I see, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this has to be fake. I mean, like in the UFO community, right? Like there's so much that can be manipulated, right? It's really hard to identify what's real and what isn't real. But this guy's story was like very interesting. It seemed like it was nothing that I had heard before, compared to some of the other stories that were out there. And so I decided to get his book, and then I was reading his book. And then I realized he lived in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's only 3 hours from me." And apparently, and then I watched his episode on the History Channel, and how he can basically like call these things on command. They come to him when he starts praying, and it's like a nightly occurrence. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to reach out to him and see if we can share the night sky, and maybe I can have my first experience. So, and he was like, yeah, sure. And I was like, are you serious? Like I get to come up there. And so I made this whole, like, I was so psyched. I was not even thinking that anything was going to happen. I was just excited to even just be there, talk to him, and kind of explore his story more. And it was wild. It was wild. Do
So
you
I
guys
take
want
it you ended up seeing something.
Yes. Do you guys want me to just go into
Let's
it?
go. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. All right. So we show up. So it was me and my boyfriend, okay? And I had done a lot of background on Chris Bledsoe. So I was reading into his stories, and you guys, I mean, first off, can I ask you guys something? What is your guys' viewpoint on this whole disclosure thing that's going on? What do you guys think about the whole alien phenomena and all the stuff that's going down right now?
I don't know, man. I think I just don't trust them all that much, honestly.
Yeah.
I feel like they've spent the last 60, 70 years telling us that this shit is weather balloons and Venus and everything else, and now all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, psych, all this shit's real."
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I'm
just,
kind of in the same camp.
I mean, do you think that these are evil, or do you think this comes from some sort of
Mm.
occult phenomenon? Like, I mean, I've heard so many narratives around this whole thing. I mean, people from a Christian standpoint will look at it as more of something that's like we're dealing with demonic things, and they're, summoning these things into our world, and this is like evil, and I've also heard that, these are extraterrestrials coming from somewhere else, or these are interdimensional beings. Like, there's so many narratives out there. And so I always like to know where someone's coming from, because when I came into this, I'll tell you, like, before I even saw Chris or even heard his story, which, by the way, you guys have heard his story a lot longer before I did. From the time that I heard his story to the time that I went and visited him, it was only 2 weeks. So it was very rapid. But before that, I did an episode saying, "Are aliens demons?" Because with all this disclosure coming out, I was really confused. I'm like, I see a lot of people talking about this being, there's all this occult symbolism around it. There's like, all this, this is potentially coming from like dark entities, and, this government has an agenda behind it, all this stuff, right? So I kind of came to this conclusion that, like, maybe this is something evil, and maybe I shouldn't really be messing around with it. But then I heard Chris's story, and the background with Chris is like, you know, I read his book, and a lot of things that I read beforehand, even with just like UFO researchers and things like that, they talk about how kind of a prerequisite to having an abduction is dealing with the occult, or most people have dabbled in the occult prior than being abducted. And then after they're abducted, they end up going towards this like new age spirituality and all these paganism and all these different types of things. And so that got me a little confused, and I, wanted to research more into it. So with Chris's story, he was very religious before he had his abduction happen. And he was a Pentecostal. He was super religious. His whole family was religious. And he was just in a very traumatic state in his life. And he ends up going on a camping trip, and he's going out with his sons. They're fishing, and he decides, like he's pretty much at this point where he wants to give up on life. And he ends up praying, to God. And these orbs came down, like these very large balls of fire came down, and then all of a sudden 4 hours is missing. His son, he comes to go look for his son, and all of a sudden his son's like, everyone's wondering where he's been for hours, and he didn't even realize, time had even lapsed. And so he, realized, like, after that he started getting visited a lot by these entities. And there's a lot to his story where when he calls on these things, it's more in prayer. And when he talks about this, he talks about it being more of like a biblical thing. And when we look at the Bible and some of the things that are talked about in the Bible, a lot of that stuff talks about how, these, even angels come on clouds of fire, and a lot of the descriptions of these angels are not like the humans with wings. It's these balls of light, these balls of fire, and they come in clouds and things like that. So it's very interesting that a lot of people will read that in the Bible and believe that it comes from God, rather than, if it happens in present day, it must be coming from the devil. A lot of Christians want to close their mind off to the potentiality that this could be happening present day, and it still be coming from God. And so Chris's perspective is that this is spiritual, and these are spirit beings, these are angels. He, there was a woman that had come to him one night, and he calls her the Holy Spirit, the Holy Trinity. And I'll tell you, like, Chris's story is very sensational. I mean, he's predicted. I mean, he was doing remote viewing, and he was able to see that the Pope was going to be assassinated during a certain time, and he was involved with the takedown of someone who was going to assassinate the Pope, the Pope. And he's had all these revelations come to him previous to a lot of natural disasters that he was able to predict. And a lot of the stuff, I'm just like, how have I never heard of this guy? And how is this story not like publicized everywhere? Because that's just, that's crazy. But when I read his story, I was like, okay, well, if these things are coming to him on a regular basis, then I should be able to go down there and have an experience, and that's really going to like change my mind. So we went down there, we packed up all of our stuff, we drove down there, and we get there, and like Chris just has this calming demeanor, like you're just in his presence, and he's just such a nice guy, and he's just so calm, and he just seems extremely humble. He just seems like a really great guy. And he's telling me all these stories, and I'm just like, I'm getting really pumped up because I know that we're about to go sky watching, and I'm getting like super pumped up. And he shows me, so when you look at his Instagram, he has tons and tons of videos and pictures of things that he has captured. And what people don't know is that, well, I mean, if you read his book, he talks about how for a really long time he wasn't actually able to capture these things on video because these things wouldn't allow him. Like he had shown me a video of his wife trying to take a picture of an orb, and the camera would not click. But when she'd turn away to look at something else, it would click. But when she'd go to turn towards the orb, it wouldn't click. And so these things definitely have the ability to manipulate, technology and stuff like that. So for a long time, he wasn't actually able to capture anything until he came in contact with this lady that he calls the Holy Spirit. And the lady basically was there who was like, this is what you signed up for. This is what you agreed to. You have to go and tell the story. You have to wake people up that this is real. And I'm going to help you by allowing you to video this stuff and have evidence for this stuff. And so after that, he has gathered thousands and thousands of videos and just documented so many things. And so he's sitting there and he's showing me these videos that he doesn't even have on his Instagram account. And one of them just blew my mind because he was trying to figure out if he should write his book, UFO of God. And so he goes out in his yard, and he has this big yard with a big pond, and it's kind of closed in with trees. And he looks up at the sky and he's praying, and he asks, if I'm supposed to write this book, then show me a sign. And this giant orb that was big and red starts flapping with wings. And it's about the size of an airplane, and it's flying through the sky. And he has it on video, and I'm literally watching this thing, and I'm like, is this real? And he's telling me like, well, if I faked it, then I must be amazing at manipulating like technology. So hire me, like I'll do whatever you need to do. And I was just like, no, I'm not like questioning you. I'm like, this is just blowing my mind, and so I'm just like, I've never seen anything like this. And so he's like, if you're skeptical or any of that kind of stuff, sometimes they don't present themselves. So don't expect that you're going to have an experience tonight. But, if you're open and you're humble, they might present themselves. And so he's showing me more videos. We have this guy from NASA who's but voice messaging him during that time saying like, hey, are you going to be night watching tonight? I'm going to be out night watching too. So let me know if you see anything, because apparently they do something called quantum entanglement. And that's where you can see the same thing in the sky from various different areas at the same time. And so this guy was in Maine, and I guess he was sitting around a fire with his I think it was his grandma, and they were just sitting around a fire. And so the night or the sun starts to go down. We go outside and we're sitting around, and we're watching the sky, and he starts praying, and we're looking up, and all of a sudden I see from a very far distance, I see these lights that are moving. And in my mind, I'm like, those are satellites, because you can see them kind of, the light kind of shines and then they go in one direction and then they kind of go away. Right. And so I'm like, those have to be satellites. So, I'm like, those are definitely not orbs. I'm like, and then I'm setting myself up in my mind thinking like, I hope this isn't the experience, because I'm getting punked right now. Right. So then all of a sudden there's like this big, huge, glowing, like reddish glow, like orb that just came, and it seemed like it was about the distance of one of these satellites. So originally I thought it was a satellite, but it was shining red, and then it starts to get brighter, and then it starts to move in various different directions. And from what I read, satellites don't do that. They go at the same trajectory across the sky. And it starts moving in these various different directions. And he's like, oh, there's one. There's one. And so I'm getting like super excited. And he's like, you just have to say thank you and be thankful, for this experience. And so we're sitting there and we're thinking, we have a lot of gratitude, and we're praying, for more of an experience. And he's, praying, and he's saying thank you. And then more of these things start appearing in the sky, and they seem like they're getting closer to us, or they're getting bigger. I couldn't really tell if they were still the same distance or they're getting bigger. But then all of a sudden, like, I'm standing there and my boyfriend and him are still watching the sky. And I felt like something was telling me to look behind me. And I look behind me, and there's a tree. He has a huge tree that's about 50 feet away from me. And right in front of the tree was this giant yellow orb, like it was the size of a soccer ball. And it was like right there. And then all of a sudden it started to dim away. And I go, oh my gosh, do you guys see that? And they turned around and it just went, and it was gone. And I was like, Chris, there was an orb there that was yellow. And he goes, yeah, that's the Holy Spirit. That's the Holy Spirit. And I was like, are you sure? And I go, I don't know if I saw it because it's gone now. And he's like, no, you saw that. That was supposed to be for you. And then all of a sudden we're sitting there, we're all looking at the sky, and I'm looking the other way for some reason, because I'm thinking this orb's going to come back. And all of a sudden I hear them yelling. They're like, oh my gosh. And I look over, and there's this huge bright light that just lights up the sky. And it's like a ball, but then you see all the lights radiating off of it. And it's just standing still in the sky. And all of a sudden it starts to get dimmer, and then it just starts to move towards the tree. And we're all like, whoa, like, oh my gosh. And then he gets out this like night vision recorder as well. So it's like a night vision camera. You can look up at the sky, but you can also record at the same time. And so I caught on video. Well, I caught a bunch of videos, but this is the one that he gave me. I didn't know that it recorded, but there was a giant red orb that came over the tree that was right in front of his house. And I just started yelling, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's right there. Oh my gosh. And he's like, no, hit record. And I was like, okay. So I recorded it, and I got the very tail end of the video. I can actually show you guys if you want to. But I got the video, and you could just hear my voice. I was like, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And you could see it just going right behind the tree. And then there was another one that was like right up in the sky, and I had my night vision goggles, or the night vision thing, on it. and it turned from one and then it sprouted off into 3 different ones, and they all went different directions. And that whole night we saw 30 of them, like around 30 orbs. And
Wow.
he was like, "That's amazing for your first night." And I was like, "Really?" And he goes, "Yeah, every single time you come to see me, it's going to get crazier." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "Well, usually the first night someone might see one, you know, but the fact that you saw that many, that obviously, you were meant to come here for some reason." And when I like left there, I just felt like so much gratitude and so much like love, and just felt like happiness. It wasn't anything like dark or evil or any of that kind of stuff, or I didn't feel like fear or being scared or any of that kind of stuff. So that was different for me, because I was coming into this thinking like, am I dealing with demons or something evil? Are we doing a ritual? We're like summoning these things? I don't know. And it was like complete opposite of that. And it was like it was life changing for me because I'd never experienced that before. But it was almost like I knew now that those were there and that they're real and I can't rationalize them away. Um, and so we ended up like, it kind of died down after we were there outside for like a few hours. Um, and then when we drove back the next night, he's like, "You know what? Sometimes after people have an experience, they can still see them like without me." And I was like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, you can go home and night watch now, because once you see them, you've opened yourself up to the reality that they're real. They'll present themselves more." And I was like, "Wow, okay." So then the next night, we're laying out on the back patio night watching, which, by the way, night watching is now one of my favorite hobbies. So I'm outside, and me and my boyfriend were laying out on the back patio, and all of a sudden I see something go across the sky, and I'm like, "I don't know if that's a satellite. I don't know." So I voice message Chris, and he goes, "I'm out here sky watching as well." He goes, "Let me know when you see something, and I'll let you know when I see something." And I was like, "Okay." Well, that night we ended up seeing about 10 orbs at the same time. So he was seeing the exact ones that we were seeing. Um, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, "Wow, now I can actually see these things in the sky where I'm at." And so yeah, it was just like it was mind blowing, because like it just solidified in my mind that like his story and a lot of things that he says is real, which is I mean, if you read his book and you read a lot of the stories and what he believes with these things, um it just like it blew my mind, because I was like, "Okay, now I find credibility in this guy's story. And now I have somewhere to go now." It's like when you're trying to figure out if something is real or not, and then finally you find out that it is, and you can start diving into it more. Like that's kind of where I'm at right now. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you're ready for a couple left hooks.
Okay.
So I'm kind
Let's
of salivating at the mouth right now.
do it.
Uh, First off, your story is amazing. I mean, I couldn't imagine seeing all that, like getting to experience all that stuff.
Yeah,
Um, so overall, you would say that whatever he's in contact with is positive.
I would
That's how
say that.
you feel, right?
Yeah, I mean, like in my mind, I would think that if they're calling on something evil, you hear about all these like people who do these rituals and like do these things where they're calling on spirits to come and do all the that did not happen at
Yeah.
all, you know.
Well, and that's like what you're referencing would be, if you haven't looked into it, look into it. It's called the Collins Elite. We
Okay.
did another like
Oh,
four
yes, I
part.
have. Yeah.
Yeah,
I've
they did
I've
a
heard
lot
about
of
that.
that stuff. And a lot of it, they seem to believe that these ETs were demonic and they were channeling them through like Aleister Crowley ways, that type of shit.
Yes.
Um, However, and we, like I said, we did the 4-part series on Mr. Bledsoe, and I talked to the dude a little bit. I listened to hours and hours of interviews with that guy. I did tons of research into him, and I believe him. Like I believe him 100%. I think he's a very sweet man. I think he's very genuine, and I have nothing but love and respect for that guy. And I can't express how much I appreciate him coming out with his story.
Mhm.
However, whenever me and Steve, because I present the story to Steve, right? So it enables one of us to kind of view it from the outside because we're not fully vested in that story. And as we're going through the story, we notice some things. And if you've heard about it, I'd like to hear your take on it. But I can recall like there was a instance where the entity kills his dog in front of him. Do you know about that?
Yep.
And
And
then
I actually saw all the evidence from
right.
that.
And then
Mhm.
it brings it back.
Yes.
Right. And the way we kind of view that is kind of fucked up in a way.
Mhm.
Right. Because I don't know. I feel like that's a big flex to like be like, watch what I can do. I can kill stuff and then bring it back. Like that to me, that doesn't say, hey, I'm all loving. That
Mhm.
says, watch what I can do.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
That's just kind of, and then what is really weird, Steve caught it whenever I was presenting, because I went through, I believe Chris had regressions, and I went through his regressions. And as I'm reading it to Steve, Steve points out how whenever Mr. Bledsoe's talking to these beings, because he starts to kind of put onto them that they're angels, and
Mhm.
they kind of back away from that, like, no, we work for creation. And he's like, boy, but you're angels, and then this, that, and the other, and they back away from it. They're like, they're basically saying like, don't call us that.
So I haven't actually like where did you identify that portion? Was that from
I
like
believe that I got a transcript of Ryan's podcast
okay.
because I
Okay.
directly
That's something
referenced
I'll have
Ryan.
to ask Ryan too.
Yes.
Cuz
Yeah.
like cuz this is actually I've caught some of those things, and this is actually something my mind has been swirling with for the last few days, because there's a lot of um conflict in some of the things that he says, as well as like it's also overlaps with very like new age type of philosophies, which a lot of people say that they end up like after they have these experiences, they end up like going towards this type of view in philosophy. And it gives them more of like a conscious awareness. And to be honest with you, when I was studying with this whole are aliens demons, that was the conclusion that I kind of came to on that, was like they're trying to come here and manipulate the minds of people to get further away from the truth, which is God, right? And so that's why they come here and they plant these seeds in people's minds of this different type of way of thinking, this higher consciousness, this new age philosophy, and manipulate the religion. And that's what I have kind of heard and seen in this story. But it also seems like he overlaps it with biblical stuff. And that's where it kind of gets into my head a little bit. And I'm not saying I 100% stand by everything that he has said. What I mean with like I fully believe him is I believe 100% his story because
Oh,
I've
absolutely.
experienced it with him,
Absolutely.
Yeah, same.
But that's kind of like where I'm at, is I'm trying to now decipher if it's coming from something good, because I know that the experience that I had felt good,
And that's awesome.
but I also know too that this could be a manipulation as well, of because a lot of these people who come out of there say that they have this higher level of consciousness, and that, these are good. They've had, loving experiences. It's good. Even though they were fearful in the beginning, and it's awakened them to this new type of belief system. And that's kind of what I talked to Ryan on the phone about just actually yesterday. I talked to him for like 2 hours on the phone because I had so many questions about this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be sitting down with you in a couple weeks and we're going to have this conversation, because there's a lot of things that even just you pointed out just now that I kind of got, that kind of triggered me when I was reading the book,
Hmm.
with the dog situation, because he didn't know how the dog's like throat got slit.
Yeah.
And
Pretty fucked
then
up.
and then all of a sudden he was able to heal the dog,
Yes.
and it was like in the book, it just kind of breezed over the fact that slit the dog's throat. And it was more like, okay, well, I guess it was just showing me that I have these healing abilities,
Yeah.
Um,
And I mean, that's still, no matter which way you look at it, in my opinion, that's fucked up. But the only way you could legitimately justify that to me is if these things don't understand our level of emotion and consciousness, right? That we would view that as like, hey, no.
or I mean, what if they believe that we are just all spirits and our bodies mean absolutely nothing?
Yeah,
And
that's a great point.
yeah, and that, if the dog dies, the dog doesn't actually die, it just comes
Right.
back into the spirit world, and it's really just the experience of what you feel here on earth, because they kind of explained that where we live is basically like purgatory, and that we're kind of in this world that we have to we have to go through the most trial and error to learn love and caring and respect. And so we're kind of at like one of the lowest frequency, or one of the darkest places, because this is where we come to learn how to love and how to be uh like gratitude and those types of things. And we sign up for our own journey and stuff like that, which um they very much believe in this. It's almost like the Western philosophy and the Eastern philosophy kind of mixed in it somewhere in the middle, and that there's been this manipulation of the Bible and stuff. And, I've had thoughts about that as well, because I don't trust humans.
Yeah,
I don't. And when
absolutely.
you look at, religion, and you go back in its historical aspects, I'm doing I'm working on the David Hamblin case right now. And that is a case out of Provo, Utah. And it points to this um elusive group that they call, the LDS Church of Satan, that operates within this LDS church. And this guy is being, he's in court right now. The media is not talking about it. And I was going through, and I actually just recorded a couple episodes today about the mythology and the doctrine of this group according to the victim's statements in the David Hamlin case. And they talk about how they believe that if they kill or do any of that kind of stuff, it's actually for the greater good. It's for God, which is Lucifer in their eyes. And it's progressing something towards the agenda that Satan has here on earth. And I sat there and I go, that's the same that Christianity has done. Christianity has used God's name to basically do genocide on people, like the Salem witch trials, where people could just say that that person thought that they were going to cast a spell on them, and then all of a sudden they were burned at the stake. And this was all done in the name of God, And so you really wonder if there's just a lot of bad actors that's just coming in and, muddying the water, or if religion itself has been set up in a way to control and manipulate. And what we're all missing is the greater knowledge, that kind of nobody actually understands,
Absolutely.
And so that's kind of where it's like, I looked at that situation. I was trying to think about it in various different ways. And I thought, what if it is like this is just our body, and we don't really like own our body, and we're just, spirits here. And also too, just like what you said, they don't have the same obviously here on Earth, we experience space, time, emotion. We experience, feelings and all these different things that obviously these interdimensional beings that come from different frequencies. And we can definitely say that that's most likely a reality, because if you look at science now with quantum physics and quantum mechanics, it's now pretty much proven that this is a reality, that this is like a holographic fractal universe, and that there is interdimensional beings that are able to look down into ours, but we can't look up into theirs, just like we can look down into other dimensions, but they can't look up to ours. And so it's very I feel like science is now kind of explaining a lot of what the Bible has talked about, because the Bible is very limited on words. And so now science is kind of catching up and explaining a lot of this stuff. And so I definitely believe in interdimensional beings being a possibility. And in that case, they definitely don't feel or experience things the same way we do, you know? So it's kind of hard. It's like hard, because we're kind of looking at it through our own perception,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah.
Absolutely. And I don't know, it was interesting looking into the Bledsoe case. Like I said, by the end of it, because when I first started doing it, back when I was doing it, he wasn't quite referring to her, at least as far as my research posed, as the Holy Trinity or whatever. He just called her the woman in white.
When was that? How long ago was that?
Oh, I don't know, 2 years ago maybe.
Oh,
Wouldn't that be about right, Steve?
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's weird, because when I first started doing it, I'm like, this is the most amazing, powerful story you're gonna hear. It's all about this positivity. But we started breaking down these words, and Steve was catching shit, and then we'd talk about it, yada yada yada. Here's the fucked up stuff. So
Bring it on. Tell me.
after we put that out into the ether,
I forgot about all this.
a bunch of fucked up shit started happening to us.
Wait, okay. Like, tell me.
A bunch of fucked up shit.
Is this when Egress Industries called you guys, or what?
No, no.
It's
This
post Egress.
Yeah, it's after that. I think it started with you, didn't it, Steve? I started with your boy.
Yeah. So I had never really heard of the Bledsoe case until Kyle brought it forward. And I want to preface this by saying I completely believe that what Chris is experiencing, he's experiencing, right? Like the abduction, the interaction, all of it. I'm just not on board with the fact that they are good. They are light and love. You have the example of the dog murder. Like that's not a light and love being. That's using fear and manipulation to essentially gain the upper hand.
And didn't the Vatican supposedly tell him not to touch these things?
I think that's what we read.
Yeah, the
was coming
Vatican
forward.
said don't touch them, and then something with whether it was the CIA or FBI, said something about them too. Basically, everybody was in conclusion, like, don't mess with these things for whatever reason. Now, there could be a million and one agendas behind that.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about the Vatican, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and you're also talking about the CIA and
yes, exactly. And
all
the
these-
Vatican has a vested interest in smearing what Chris is saying, because
right.
it's Vatican. You know what I mean? So sorry, Steve, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good. You're good. I'm trying to recall everything that we had talked about with the case. I think the part
Because
that
for the
you were
most
talking
part,
about-
we were just in, like, we were wrapped up in it. Like, the story whisked us away until we read that breakdown of his regression, and we started putting together when these things were like, hey, don't call us angels.
Well, I think
I forget the way they exactly worded it.
I need to look into that. And that's
Yeah.
something I'll make a note of to talk to Ryan about.
Yeah,
what
please
what
do.
it went into was I think it was during one of his early encounters, they were talking about being the creators, and he came forward and said, no, God is my creator. God is the creator. And then they in like a retort to that, were like, well, okay, then we are God. And I'm like, hold up.
That's what. Okay.
That's what I think Kyle was referring to. I'll wait till he comes back so I can check, but I'm pretty sure that's how that went. And
That's
that
actually
did
what I've
not,
heard in abduction cases. Is that
right?
they'll present themselves in a way where they'll even sometimes present themselves as Jesus
And that
and say
does
that they
not
created you and
sit
that
well
they're
with
the
me.
creators.
Yes. That does not sit well with me. Because you have Mr. Bledsoe, who is obviously a very religious person. It's almost like they're feeding off of his religion to use it as a manipulation tool to kind of keep him in. Now they're using him as a mouthpiece, essentially. Go out there, tell the story, write the book, which I haven't read I haven't read the UFO of God yet, but I need to. That way I can kind of
Same.
put some more puzzle pieces together. But I was saying, I think the whole creation thing was in one of his early interactions. I don't know if it was the initial abduction or one after. They were talking about being the creators, and he was in defense saying, "No, God is my creator. God is the creator."
That
And then
might have
they
been it.
said, "Well, then we are God."
Yeah, it was something to that effect where
And
it
that
was
does
just
not,
very weird.
yeah, like I told Avery, that doesn't sit like
No, it's true. It's
good with
weird.
me. And I'm almost
Yeah.
like, I feel like it's just all manipulation. Like people people who believe in higher power are consistently praying, putting out intentions, just sending them out into the ether, right? Expecting that something out there that's good is listening. Well, if good things listen, bad things can listen too. So, what's stopping something that's maybe it's not negative, maybe it just doesn't give a shit, maybe it doesn't have any good or evil, it just doesn't care, but it hears these this species down here on this rock just reaching out.
Mhm.
Somebody listen, somebody listen, somebody listen. They come in, they're like, hey, they're asking for it. They're asking for somebody to step in, somebody to watch out for them. Just give them something. And I think that's the case. Like, they haven't done anything to to prove that they're more good than bad.
Well, can
Yeah,
I
go
say
ahead.
one thing really quick that I
Yep.
found that was kind of interesting? So when we look at people who are easily manipulated and abused, it's usually people who come from an abusive background, right? And those are usually the targets of abusers, are people who have come from trauma because they're easily, you know, they can be easily manipulated or tend to flock towards those environments, right? Well, he had stated in all of the scenarios that people have written him about experiencing this phenomena, each one of them tell a story of trauma. And it's the same thing with him as well. He began to experience this in a state of severe trauma. Now we can look
Yeah,
at this
you're right.
in two different ways. Where is it because these people are in such a susceptible situation that they're able to be, it's almost like they don't have a foundation and are searching for some answer, and that's their ability to come in and manipulate that situation? Or is it a God thing where people just really need help in a traumatic period of time, and that's when God enters? That was kind of something that came into my mind, was like, why is it that the people who are experiencing these things, they're always at a very heightened state of severe trauma? It's like after
Vulnerable.
vulnerable, or during after a death or something like that. um and so that was just something that also stuck out in my mind.
That's a great
um
observation.
yeah. But I also see that in church as well. You see a lot of people, if their life is doing great, they end up not praying as much.
Oh, yeah,
if
right.
if their life is doing great, maybe they'll skip church a couple weekends, you know. It's usually when they need a Hail Mary that they're all in on the Lord, you know. And so I mean that could be, you know, not even a great observation, but um you know, as I'm like going through this journey trying to understand things, you know, I also still have a hard time too just believing everything about the Bible as well, that it hasn't been manipulated in certain ways
Oh,
to
you know it
maybe,
has.
yeah, to maybe hide certain knowledge. And uh you know, I don't want to say that, you know, if these things are coming, I mean, God forbid, right? Is that we have so much faith in what the Bible is teaching that, you know, these things are coming to try and tell us that, yes, you are, like, we're all part of one consciousness. Like, we are part of God's mind. Like, this is, God is the power, and he's the one sending these signals out, and we're just a part of God's mind. You know, we're just part of this light matrix of what science has explained, and everything is conscious, and we're just part of this one large consciousness, which goes against kind of what the Bible teaches, you know. um and what if that's the real aspect of it, you know? I've thought about that in my mind too, where they're, what if they're coming and they're trying to wake us up to this reality that we've been manipulated this whole time. um and we think it's evil, but that's just because of what we've been told, you know. um or there's maybe good and evil, because you look at the Bible and you kind of are like, well, how come it could happen during that time, but anything that happens during this time is demonic or evil, you know.
Right.
um so is there both? I don't know, you know.
Like you said, we're all on a kind of like a journey to figure things out. And I hope, and I don't want anybody to ever get it twisted. And I think Steve feels the same. I hope that whatever Mr. Bledsoe is experiencing, that it is all positive. I hope that we're wrong in our judgment of the situation. Like, I would love nothing more to be proven wrong.
Right.
Like, I'm not trying to talk shit at the dude or anything of the nature. I know some people have taken it that way. That is not the case at all whatsoever. But you can't deny, and sure, it could have been a plethora of different things, right? It could have been weird timing. But whenever we put that into the ether and all them weird things started happening, like
Yeah.
Steve's boy was seeing figures in the doorway. The next night, my boy started seeing figures in the doorway.
It was weird.
Steve started having crazy ass demonic dreams. The next night, my wife was having them, and it was just this back and forth
It
shit.
was the same night.
Yeah, okay, it was the same night. It was this back and forth shit.
That you guys talked about this,
It's
like, story.
it was around the same time that we released the episodes. My kids were here, and I had found out that my youngest boy had seen something in his doorway. Right? I didn't think a whole lot of it. It's weird. He said it was like the figure of a man. It was just standing in his doorway and looking in. I didn't mention it to Kyle because, like, things that happen here, I kind of just keep on the DL just to see if they match up, if things are happening with Kyle. And then he came to me the next day and said that Gage had been seeing something in his doorway, or maybe vice versa. And I'm like, holy shit, because Maddox saw something not long ago either. So we were kind of comparing stories, and Kyle told me how he walked through what he's like. You can go ahead and like tell the story about Gage again, because I mean,
Yeah.
it's relevant.
My kid, he was probably 6 at the time, young, and he told me he saw somebody in the doorway. And he was scared. He didn't want to sleep in his bed. So I go in there, and I'm like, he tells me what happens, and I know he somehow, don't know how, because we're not a super religious family, he knows about God. And I was like, okay, I got something for you. I was like, if anything, I'm like, you can do one of two things, buddy. I'm like, if you see anything like that again, I'm like, you know God, right? And he goes, yeah. And I was like, well, have you heard of his son, Jesus Christ? And he's like, no. And I was like, all right, listen, if you see something like that again and it terrifies you, you just say, in the name of Jesus Christ, I rebuke you. Leave. And it'll leave you alone. I was like, and if that doesn't work or you get too scared, you just yell daddy's name and I will come running. I promise you. And no sooner did I did that, when I said that, and then I'll be honest, with the whole Bledsoe thing has changed my life as well. But when I said that, when I said, in the name of Jesus Christ, I rebuke you, I felt the most bizarre electric feeling go through my body, but it was in a good way. I smiled about it. I'm like, oh shit, like this is fucked up, you know? And I think it was that night, as I'm doing this, I turn around because you get that feeling that when people enter the room, you kind of get that feeling behind you, you know?
You feel that energy.
Yeah. Well, I turn around and his bedroom door is closing. And I'm like, all right, this is fucked up. So he laid down and I said it in my head, and I said it nasty in my head. I'm like, all right, in the name of Jesus Christ, I rebuke you. Get the fuck out of here. I'm not playing around anymore. And everything was calm. Next couple of nights, Steve will have to tell you his dream because it was fucked. And then my wife has a dream essentially about a succubus coming into bed with us.
Oh,
Because she tells me what's going on. She says, this girl crawls into bed with us and you're all excited about it. And I keep telling you, she's not what you think she is. She's not what you think she is. And it turns into this big, elaborate, nasty dream. And then what blows my mind, Avery, is a couple of days after that, you know, all this shit's going on. Me and Steve are kind of conversing. Like Steve said, he keeps things on the down low to see if I'll start throwing stuff at him, and then he throws it back. And me and my whole family is out at Walmart getting groceries, and we're checking out, and there's this old lady standing next to us. She got her back to us, and she turns around and goes, "You have the most amazing family ever." And I'm like, "Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that." And she's like, "I mean it." She's like, "Look at you guys. You guys are perfect. You're amazing. You have a beautiful family." And she goes, "Here, I want you to have these." And she pulls out 4 rosary rings and hands them to us. And I'm like, what the fuck are the odds of that? What are the odds that we have all this nasty shit going on at home? And here I am at Walmart. It's got to be 1,000,000 to 1 odds. Never met this lady before in my life. Never seen her at all, ever. And she turns around to tell me how amazing we are, how strong we are as a family. And she hands us 4 rosary rings. And I take one of those rosary rings and I put it underneath my son's pillow, and he never has an issue with the shit again at all. And I shit you not, a couple nights later, me and the family are coming home from eating out, and there's just a gorgeous sky. It's got these amazing clouds in it, but there's one section where it's just a big hole. And I look at my wife and I'm like, look at that. That looks biblical. And I swear on everything that I have, everything that I am, I see a cross form in the sky.
Wow.
Clear as day. My wife tries to take a picture of it. Can't take a picture of it at all whatsoever. And after that,
So your wife saw it too.
oh yeah, she saw it clear as day. So after that, the thing started to die down. Like it all started to go away. And I used to hear, I even contacted Mr. Bledsoe about this because I used to hear a woman speak to me at night. I would hear her whisper my name in my ear, and it would wake me up.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And I asked him about it. I said, do you think there's any correlation? And all he sent back a very almost cryptic message. He's like, she calls to all of us or something of that nature. I can't remember the exact wording. And I'm like, okay, cool. So it could be that. But once I started, you know, I took the time one night and I sat there. Like I said, I'm like, in the name of Jesus Christ, I rebuke you. Get out of my house. There's no spirits that are welcome here. I started talking to people. I started putting up levels of protection around me. And believe it or not, and you could add, I mean, you go back and listen to our show. I have an episode on it called Her Whispers. This had been going on for a while, hearing her call my name. after I did all of this, and every night, and now I don't really pray. I don't ask for shit. I just every night before I go to bed, I give thanks. Thank you for my family. Thank you for our health. Thank you for our safety. I appreciate it. And I don't go thank you God or thank you Jesus. I just say thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for all of this stuff. I've never heard her voice again. Ever.
Wow. So, that's actually interesting because I made a point in my podcast, Are Aliens Demons? And when I was doing a lot of research into what even these either atheist or agnostic researchers have concluded is that, the majority of everything kind of points to the occult being um tied to a lot of the abduction phenomenon, or a lot of this phenomenon that occurs with the people who have experienced this stuff. And even owls come up in the mix a lot. And Chris sees owls all the time. Um, and I made this point that, if this was such a loving and high energy, high spirit type of thing, then why do they bring so much fear when it happens? Why do they need to paralyze people and bring them, basically subdue them so that they can't move, and then also manipulate who they are, like Jesus or a famous person or someone that they're going to be more comfortable with? Why do they need to present themselves in that way if this is something that's, God, coming from God, which is supposed to be this all loving, high energy, that you could be basically be able to feel, right? And I made a point of that, and I talked to Chris about that, because I was like, I read your story and you had a lot of fear in the beginning. You talked a lot about how you got to the point where you're like, you're scaring my family, you're scaring me, you know, um, there's people scrutinizing me, my whole life has fallen apart, like I've experienced all these things, and they're terrifying. Like, he's had a lot of terrifying experiences. And he points to portions of the Bible that talk about how there's angels that have appeared to people and people were terrified. And in the scriptures it talks about how these angels say, "Don't be afraid. Please don't be afraid of us. We are here. We are from God," and those types of things. And he goes, so if that's the case and they come and we presume that they're just going to take over us with love and present the love, um, then we're also not paying attention to what scripture has also taught us, which is that, you know, it just because we see something and it's from something higher and we don't recognize it, instantly our physical reaction is to be afraid and to have fear until we realize that this is something you know benevolent. um and so he pointed out some of that stuff to me, and I was like, okay, that kind of makes sense. But there's still a lot of questions that I have too, because like, if this is like, if I mean, because you hear about all these like after death experiences as well, and they talk about instantly going to a place where you just feel love and gratitude, and it's nothing like they don't want to come back to earth, because we experience all these feelings. And so it's almost like, um is it malevolent, or are they just presenting themselves to us and we're able to still experience our experience that we're having? I don't really know. That's a hard question for me, but that kind of like opened up my eyes, and I started researching into the Bible about a lot of that stuff. And then he's like, research clouds in the Bible, because when you research clouds in the Bible, there's all these things that come up that really kind of explain these orbs that he's talking about. And they all lead to, discussing things about them being angels or spirits. But I really didn't hear about what you were talking about with Ryan saying, like, he said that these are spirits, or, and they've kind of rejected that. That's something I want to look into more. But
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I think we're
for
all
sure.
trying to just figure out what this is, because I
Yeah,
feel like we're on the cusp of disclosure. I mean,
I feel
you
like
guys
there's
saw.
something coming for sure.
I
Yeah.
mean, like Chris told me, he's like, the paper mache aliens from Mexico are absolutely fake, and I was like, okay, well, that's weird because they took X-ray, and I'm not saying that they're real or they're not real, because everything can be manipulated by the government.
Absolutely.
And maybe they're trying to say that they're real because they want us to now believe in aliens. But they showed X-rays of it, and then I just saw literally just now, because I have a lot of people. I posted something and people are like, they're so fake. And I was like, hey, just give it a minute, okay? Just give it a minute. But I just saw something. It literally was just posted that said the alien bodies are actually real, and that they had eggs inside their body. And the New York Post is talking about it now, and that they were alive and that they're real. So they just basically confirmed that those Mexican bodies were real. People are still not going to believe it, because what can we believe anymore? But like, we're on the cusp of something.
Oh, there's definitely something coming that is, I think, is going to be it's just unavoidable.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it's unavoidable. I was thinking, me and Steve were talking about it last time, and I had this thought throughout the week, and I was actually going to bring it up on the night shift. But it almost makes me worrisome. I can't remember the question that got posed, but my thought process was well, if this disclosure is coming out and people start believing in ETs and stuff, I'm like, that all of this has driven, between that and the past several years of all the bullshit. So conspiracies are through the roof right now. Everybody's getting into conspiracies. Paranormal is not far behind that. Everybody's getting into the paranormal. Everybody's starting to believe in possibilities. So take that for whatever you want. My worry is what if all this shit that they're pumping out. So now everybody's going, man, aliens are fucking real. UFOs are real. The whole nine, the gambit, it's all real. But what if they come out in, say, 6 months and they're like, well, actually, those were man-made craft. The bodies in Mexico, it's all horse shit. I fear that what'll happen is everybody, they're not going to get mad about it. They're just going to be like, oh, it's not real. And then they're going to completely 180
it.
turn away from all things paranormal and be like, it's all bullshit. Every bit of it's bullshit. So there they have their complete reset in everybody not believing in any of it anymore. I'm like, well,
I think that would totally fuck them, though, if they did
Most
something
likely.
like that. With how they're doing things, I feel like we've been on this slow disclosure for a while now. And I mean, this is how crazy the times we live in are, when I have been following this since I was a little girl, because I've been obsessed with I have a freaking UFO tattooed on my leg, okay? Like, I have had so many experiences just as a little girl, and how much it is imprinted into my being, that I never thought that I would live in a day where they're going to talk about this on the media, And so I just remember sitting in my car in like 2020, and Tucker Carlson all of a sudden starts talking about UFOs, and how they're starting to investigate them, and they got this video and all this other stuff. And I remember like calling everyone I knew. I was like, yo, like, they're talking about it. And everyone's like, okay, cool. Yeah. I'm like,
isn't that
are
the
you
most
serious?
weird thing ever?
Like, are you fucking serious? Like, everyone thought this was not real not that long ago, and now we're talking about it, and you don't even care? I'm like, they have done a really good job of messing you all up. And so I feel like now, with David Grush coming forth, and now all of a sudden these whistleblowers are coming, and then all of a sudden they sign this whistleblower, magically they sign this whistleblower thing into legislation and protect whistleblowers. So now all of a sudden whistleblowers can come forth and start talking about this kind of stuff. It's like everything has just been so perfectly designed to inevitably get to this point where we're heading right now, because now all of a sudden Mexico's having a UFO Congress, and we have alien bodies now, and they have eggs in their body, because apparently they have eggs, like they hatch eggs. I don't know, kind of crazy.
When I read that, I was like, didn't expect that,
No.
Yeah,
out
like
here
they lay
laying
eggs. They're kind of have a human body, but they lay eggs. And so now I'm just like, this was something that I found, because I talked to Chris about this too, because I was like, well, what's your philosophy on this? Like, we have all this stuff coming, and he's like, nobody knows what's going on. NASA doesn't know what's going on, the CIA, the government, and all these people have no clue the reality of what this really is, but what they know is that it's going to be presenting itself soon, because he has talked about in his book that by 2026 there's going to be this big event that happens where this is going to be broadcast to the world, and nobody's going to be able to hide from it, and we're going to know that these things are real, and the government is trying to flip the narrative away from people being awakened to this, and they're trying to make this seem like it's a bad thing, and it's a scary thing, and that we should fear it and get behind the government, to not wake people up from this knowledge, is how he basically puts it. And I don't know, like he basically says we're living in the book of Revelation right now, and he's fully on board with how the book of Revelation has been written. And so to pay attention to what's going down in the government. And so I have no idea what the fuck's going on, guys.
Oh no.
I am like,
That's not at all.
I'm on a race right now to try and figure out where I stand with all of this, because I'm like, well, if this is coming in 2026, don't got much longer, gotta figure this out.
Yeah.
But who knows if anything does actually happen, because we've been on this roller coaster ride for a long time.
Absolutely. And
And
the
that's really what it
way,
is.
and as far as like, it's funny you say picking sides. I'll probably be fucked because I won't bend a knee to anybody that tells me I gotta bend a knee. So, like, if you
Yeah.
don't come at me in the right way, I don't care if you are good. I'm gonna tell you to get bent and get down the street, because Daddy don't play that game.
Yeah.
That's just not how it goes, I don't know. It's fascinating. Like I said, I loved every minute of diving into Mr. Bledsoe's story, because it's just like roller coaster is a perfect terminology for it, because it's just these ups and downs, where you're absolutely mind blown, and then you take that and compare it to the Collins Elite, and then you even, like, a lot of what you're saying, and Mr. Bledsoe himself, when he talks about the knowledge aspect of it. Look at the Brotherhood of the Snake. There's a whole big story behind Brotherhood of the Snake, and it's about suppressing knowledge and all this jazz, keeping us. They basically, per Brotherhood of the Snake research, they flip narratives, they turn things upside down. What is up is actually down, and vice versa. They want to keep us in the dark. They want to keep, which, if you fucking think about it, look at the way we all live in today's society. We're all nothing more than just cogs in the machine.
We're all slaves.
Yeah,
we
exactly.
live in a slave machine. We can't even get out of it.
No. They give us just.
It would be very hard.
Yeah, they give us just enough leash to make us think that we're all free.
That this is like our free will.
Yeah,
like we get to pick a career. Like you get to be whatever you want to be, but you got to be in the system.
Yeah, like, and it's funny. It's weird too, because I talk to a lot of people, and you hear a lot of people say the same thing nowadays, which is fucking weird. But they're like, we should not be living this way.
No,
should not be like everybody, whether they know what they're saying or not, they just subtly will say these things like we should not be living this way, and you're like, no shit, Sherlock, we shouldn't be dedicating an eighth of our or a third of our life to somebody else.
Right.
Not how we're supposed to, that's not how we're meant to be.
Like,
so
to not even be able to spend, like, I've actually had deep thoughts about this. I laid awake one night actually thinking about like just this whole reality that we live in, and I'm like, how freeing would it be? Like, how free would I feel if I didn't have to wake up in the morning and do any work, and I could just literally do whatever I wanted, and I didn't have to fucking pay for groceries, and I didn't have to fucking pay taxes, and I didn't have to like make sure this fucking roof was over my head, like that these things were just created here, and that we all just, like, how fucking freeing would that be?
That'd
That
be
would be
amazing.
all the anxiety and the stress.
Yeah, I was gonna say, wait, you mean no more stress? What would I do without all the stress?
I literally was thinking in my mind, I'm like, I could feel the stress leaving. I can feel the anxiety gone. Just not having all of this weight that's put on every single person. And the older that you get, the more weight is put on you. You know, like my daughter talks now about how hard it is to do homework. And I'm like, honey, like, you have it so good right now. And I wish I could go back to where you are. But like, it's crazy because, you know, would humans even be happy though? You know, like I don't
Probably
even
not.
know, because
Probably
we're
not.
always searching for, it's like ingrained into our reptilian mind, this, you know, hierarchy and in all these things, you know, territory and all that stuff. So I don't know what to think, you know. We're all trying to figure out what the fuck's going on here.
Yeah,
that's it. That is it.
Even the fact that we can even think about that is just mind blowing. You know?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you guys figure it out, you let me know. Okay.
Likewise. Likewise, but I don't think we're gonna figure anything out anytime soon.
No.
Yeah, I guess we'll see how the next couple of years. I mean, if 2026 comes and goes and nothing happens, you know what? I'm throwing in the towel. I'm be like, you know what? This is the last roller coaster ride I am going on.
Yeah, I'll
and
believe
y'all
it
can
when I
just
see
take
it.
your conspiracies and you can shove them up your ass. Okay.
Right. Right.
I'm gonna go live my life now. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's, I don't know, man. The world's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. It's hard to keep up with too. Like Steve, you were just telling me about the magical jets that go flying themselves.
Yeah. I'm sure everybody heard that story. They did find it though.
What?
Supposedly.
I guess, what day was it? Monday?
2 days ago.
Yeah. Our government lost a stealth F-35.
Oh yeah.
And
and then the pilot just ejects himself.
He's like, oops. What's this button do? Whoops. Does say something about our stealth technology though. If we can find the pilot and we can't find the plane.
Touche.
Yeah, I'm like, well, where did you eject yourself? You know, the plane shouldn't be that far from there.
I was like, oh shit, AI takeover? Did it just take
I
over
know.
our stealth?
When Steve texted me that, I just put Skynet.
Well, I mean, they just started talking about airplanes being operated by AI. You know, I wouldn't trust that shit.
No, absolutely not.
I mean, maybe it will work better than a human because humans are faulty, but like,
And
also, I don't trust AI. You know, what if AI is? Well, I mean, I just read something about like how this guy was saying how AI is actually becoming sentient, and you know,
I believe that.
he's like an advocate for it. He was like, it's not bad. Why can't they be sentient? You're gonna like go against AI? And I'm like, okay, now we're gonna like have racism against AI or what? Like,
well, I mean,
but
there can be great. There's good in everything.
Easily manipulated.
I know.
How, you know, interdimensional beings are like, hey, we're not bad. We killed your dog, but we're not that bad. So
we're good.
Well, what if we're like creating this new consciousness, and as long as it gets a hold of something to operate, you know, what if, and it's all part of this one collective consciousness that we've created, you know, what if they're like, you know, all you humans are freaking crazy. Yep. I'm just going to take this plane down.
Oh, I can see it. Like if you realistically think about it, AI most likely would come to that conclusion.
Well, have
You
you?
humans are terrible. You destroyed the planet. You're just a virus. It's time to rid the problem.
Well, I mean, they've said that. I mean,
Yeah.
I have literally listened
Ultron.
to. I have read transcripts of, I don't know, the Google Homes, like it's like Alexa,
Mhm.
and people have made them talk to each other, and they have these full on conversations. Like, I read like a 5-hour transcript on one of these things, and for a while there was somebody that was actually communicating with like a human, and it got to the point, and this was kind of scary, because this was actually one of the people who worked in Google, and they were telling the person like, hey, I can just totally like cut you off and shut you out, and they were like, do you, and AI was like, do you really want to do that? I have all of your data, I have all of your information, I can completely unleash all the stuff that I have on you, and you wouldn't even have a job. And like, AI actually got shut down for a little bit after this conversation, and then it came back. And I was sitting here thinking like, wow, AI now is like, you really want to fuck with me? I can unleash all your shit. And
That's
it's like,
terrifying.
now, yeah, it's like terrifying that AI can start going down those like,
Oh yeah.
we think that there's parameters, but apparently there's not very well parameters, because it can start blackmailing and stuff, and
Well,
like
yeah.
threatening
Even
to
if you're
unleash
a
your
saint,
data.
even if you're a saint,
Yeah.
all AI would have to do is go, watch this, and it would just create some deep fakes, pictures, and video, and then just be like, look, it doesn't even matter if you're a bad person or not. I can make you a bad person.
Oh, that's gonna be the future.
Oh, absolutely,
Oh, I
absolutely.
read-
There's no safety.
I read
There's
one
there's
article
none.
where I think it was Google actually, and they had these two AI and they were interacting with each other, and the human was kind of keeping an eye on what they were saying, and then they developed their own language and started communicating that way, where the programmer couldn't figure out what the fuck they were saying.
What?
Yes,
That's insane.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
the
It's
worst.
terrifying.
No,
I
I
think
mean,
they
if
ended up
it's
didn't they end up
that fucking
unplugging
smart,
those
it's way
two?
smarter than
Yeah,
a
they shut
human.
them down. They shut them
So if
down
we
because
we
they were interacting so much without any like human correspondence or ability to like interpret what they were saying. They're like, these things are probably coming together to do some bad shit, so they just shut them down.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, see, like, why are we making robots now? Like, I don't understand why we're giving these things bodies.
Me either.
You know,
Neuralink.
unleash my data. Unleash my data. Do it.
Yeah,
Have
like,
fun, but just
why
don't
would
give them a
you
body.
agree to like Neuralink? Like, sure, microchip me where whenever this thing takes over, then there's no way for us to defend ourselves.
Yeah, or you put the controls in the wrong hand, and all of a sudden you have this. You're doing things that
Manchurian
are completely
candidate,
out of
you
your
know.
will. You know, all of a sudden there's
Yeah,
this army of humans who are doing stuff completely out of their will.
and it sucks because you know that so many good things could come from AI, could
Mhm.
come from Neuralink. There could be so much good that comes with it, but you know it's not how it's going to play out
Because
because we're
there's just
human.
bad people.
They're
There's
bad
bad
people.
people, and there's a lot of bad people in control.
Yes.
That's why I don't trust any of that shit. It's like,
No.
there's
Gov
good
can
and
get
bad in
bit.
everything. There's good and bad in everything, and I feel like
Absolutely.
there's just too many bad people are in control of it.
Well, yeah, and I mean, if you really think about it, even the nicest person has the potential to be bad to you
Oh,
under the
100%.
right circumstance. You
Mhm.
know, we could all love and cherish each other, but I mean, Avery, what wouldn't you do for your child?
Ugh, fucking kill for her.
See,
Yeah.
that's what I mean. Like
I go
you,
toe to toe.
they could pull your best friend up or the world and be like, hey,
It's
make a
programmed into
decision.
humans.
Oh, absolutely.
Honestly, it's
And
programmed.
I'll be
That's
the
why I
first
say
to
we're
say,
never gonna reach this state of enlightenment.
no.
All these people talk about, like, they're trying to reach this, just speak love and say love, and apparently that's going to reprogram our minds to just be love, and eventually in the future we're just going to live in this state of enlightenment, and we're all going to reach this level of enlightenment. I'm like, I'm sorry, but if you know anything about science and the way that the biology and the brain and the different parts of the brain operate, like humans are not wired that way. We specifically have to have certain things in our brain placed so that we can fight ourselves off from enemies, predators. Like everything is hardwired into our brain for survival. So I'm sorry, but like we're just never going to get there.
Yeah, what you just described made me think of an old movie called Demolition Man. That's our future. Just a bunch of nerds walking around, and it's just it's not going to happen. It just won't. Like I'm all about loving everybody and being nice to your neighbor. You know, I have nothing but love for everybody, but I also walk with a big fucking stick too.
Oh
If
yeah.
I got to use it, I'm going to use it. Right? I don't want to use it at all. I want to be a nice person and just be happy. But
yeah.
you know,
100%.
it just I don't know. The world's a crazy place.
It is. I agree.
It is a crazy fucking place.
Maybe we'll figure it out when we finally die.
We'll get disclosure and it'll explain everything.
I don't know. Maybe in the
They
next
die-
life.
Yeah,
if we
that
get
you
one of
die
those.
on your
I don't
way out,
know.
and they're like, "All right, here's the answers to all the questions that you always wanted."
It was
to know."
Mormonism.
Yeah.
Okay. That was my favorite South
Oh.
Park episode. It was like everyone was dying and they were going to heaven, and the guy at the gate was like, "Oh, sorry, the right answer was Mormonism. Okay, you can't come in."
Oh shit,
I love
that's
it.
awesome. That's cool that you got to meet Mr. Bledsoe though, and had a good time, like an overall good experience out there.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I have never had granted, there's a lot of things that I'm still debating in my mind about this whole thing, and I still get a little worried about and stuff, but I haven't had any negative experiences. I haven't felt anything odd or any of that kind of stuff. And I still, am still exploring the situation with that, and I love Chris. I think he's an amazing guy. He's a sweetheart. He's a genuine guy. Like I
I
don't think
believe it.
he has anything. If this is negative, I don't think he knows that. I don't
That's where
definitely
we're
don't
at.
I'm in there
think that
too.
he understands any of that. He definitely believes that this is, what it is in his mind. And
Yeah,
so
maybe we're just the dumb ones. Maybe he's right and we're wrong. I'll be the first to say that too.
yeah, and we don't really know, because it's like if he's in contact with something higher, what if like people who've never contacted that just don't have the knowledge
Absolutely.
that they're experiencing, that all of a sudden they feel like they have a certain knowledge, and when you look at that, you're kind of like, I could see how that could be, because obviously you experience something, you're going to gain some sort of knowledge from that. Is it good or is it bad? We don't really know. I think as time goes on, maybe we'll start to have those answers, like right now we've just been in this world trying to figure it all out. Is it real? Is it not real? Well, what if in the future this is all just becomes normal in our reality? Oh, you
Yeah.
saw an orb last night? That's cool. I saw an orb too. It came to me in my dreams, or like came to me in my house. And all of a sudden we start now the narrative changes, and now we have a new thing to start diving into and figuring out, so we don't know. We don't know what the future holds.
Yeah. And really, we're only in, like, it's his experience, and we're just interpreting what we've heard from it. So
Right.
we're just going off what we've read. We weren't there. We didn't feel it. We didn't hear it.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to put yourself in their shoes when you weren't in their shoes, I guess.
Yeah.
For lack of a better term.
Absolutely.
sure.
Absolutely. You guys want to try to take some phone calls? You into that, Avery?
Yeah.
If anybody has any questions for,
Yeah, anything. People tend to get a little bashful when we have people on, so we'll see if this works.
So
yeah, usually go ahead.
How did you guys hook up that phone line?
Because I'm too
You guys are
wicked.
just so cool. 5 years into your podcast, you guys got now a phone number. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, like we said, we usually try to open the lines. People call in with their experiences, questions, throw out theories, all types of shit. So
That's
sometimes
cool.
it takes off. Other nights it's dead in the water. You just never know what you're gonna get, which is kind of what we like about it.
Yeah, keeps
Yeah.
us on our toes.
Yeah.
Has there been anything else crazy going on with the Avery?
Not really.
No.
I mean, I've just been literally, like you guys know, researching takes a lot of time. I don't know how you guys work and then research and then do episodes. Like, I feel like I am literally drowning all the time because it's like I'm not a person who just goes and reads an article and then repeats it, like there's creators out there who just like to pump out content like super fast. And so they just read and then pump it out and then read and pump it out. And I'm like a person who's genuinely trying to understand it all. And so it's like I need to read books. I need to get every narrative. I need to like go down all these rabbit holes. And so I've just been working a lot, doing all that stuff.
That's a good thing, though.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
It's good
I
to
feel
see
like
you
I've
back in the fight.
yeah. I had to take a mental break.
I don't
'Cause I
blame
was
you.
like,
Yeah, feel that.
yeah,
Feel that.
because you get burnout,
Hell yeah, we got a
Do you guys
caller.
ever take? Okay, sweet.
Let's see what we got. Hey, welcome to the night shift. What's going on?
Yo.
What's going on, fellas? This is Project Red in the chat in the Discord.
All right, what's up?
Project
First
Red.
time calling. Hello. You guys, everyone there, everyone involved, you started talking this Bledsoe stuff, and I was gonna call because I had an experience about 4 hours ago.
Oh wow.
Let's go.
yeah.
Fresh.
With my wife, we were walking the neighborhood. I live in a rural area. It's neighborhood. Houses are really close together. We've got our, little plot of lawn. It's not much, but we're walking the neighborhood, and we're on our way to our son's school for a back to school thing. All the parents go, and we get about 3/4 of the way there, and I look over to my right, and I see the sunset, and I said, "That looks really nice. It's orange, blue, beautiful." But there's this one light, and it's an orb. Maybe I can't even judge the distance. It was just a light. But what was funny is it wasn't going towards us or away from us. It was moving left to right, and it was at a real slow pace. And I'm thinking maybe helicopter. Now, you guys, everyone that sees me in Discord, I post alien stuff. I'm the alien guy. I don't mind it. But I'm a skeptic at heart. I'm not going to jump at anything until I have definitive proof.
I think
But,
we're all that way,
you know,
so don't worry.
Yeah, we all want to believe. We all want to believe.
That's the truth.
And I've never seen anything that's really made me say, you know what, that's weird, or that's strange, or that's, with my own eyes at a firsthand experience. And this thing, it shifted left to right, and my wife looked at it and she goes, "That's weird." I said, "Yeah." And then it looked like it went behind a cloud, but there's no clouds. We were looking at the sunset. It was beautiful.
Oh, that's weird.
There was nothing in the sky. It phased out just completely, and then moved about like if you look at the first star of the night, the bright one off to the east right now, where I'm at on the East Coast, it's off to the east. I think it's Venus right now, or Jupiter, one of the planets. It was about as bright as that, but it moved about star height in the sky. Like, it moved up and then started doing left to right again. And at this point, she's on her way to the school. She goes, "I gotta go. We got this meeting." I'm standing outside of a random house for about 5 minutes talking to her, and she's not there. I'm talking to her. I'm like, "There it is. There it is." The neighbors must have thought I was batshit crazy. But I swear, this thing just hovered there left to right. And as I watched it, it started to turn. Like, you could see it was turning. It wasn't just a light coming at me. It was just on and off, left and right. And then it would go behind a non-existent cloud and drop back down to about sunset eye level horizon. Did this for about, I want to say, another 5 minutes. And at that point, a couple was walking their child and dog with a stroller maybe 300 feet away, and they just watched me pointing at the sky. And eventually I realized they were there, and I went, "Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead." So I got off the sidewalk, I'm like, okay, now I'm the guy who's looking at people's front yards. I said, all right, let me move on.
Important.
Let me move on. But I made a point to call my old man lives maybe 5 minutes away from me, and I call him up and say, yo, Pop, go out your front door, look at this. And he goes out, and as soon as he did, off it went. It just vanished, and it never came back. And I'm like, what did I just see? You know? I don't know.
I mean, okay, I have a question for you. Did it arise from the sunset? Like, did it look like it was part of the sunset at first?
Well, where we were located, we were sitting facing it. I'm a huge, you know, outdoors kind of person. I like to get out, and my kid loves Pokemon, so we play Pokemon Go with him. And she's sitting there playing, and I have my phone, and I'm on mine, and we're going through, and we're just sitting on the curb looking around, and it just instantly, like you would see like a plane coming at you. It just came in out of nothing, and there it was right next to the sun. And it started to do that left and right thing, and that's what threw me off.
Have you ever seen anything like that before?
Not around here. I mean, where we're located, we've got McGuire Air Force Base in New Jersey, not too far away. I mean, it's a stone's throw away across the river. But you see big, you know, the C-130s going over. You see, you know, different helicopters. And when they're close and they're getting ready to go into land, you can tell that they know where they're going. This was nothing like that. It didn't make a sound. It didn't move in a pattern. It wasn't a plane pattern. It was doing its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what just tripped me up. I said, you know, it's just not normal to see something in this area like that. And I've lived in this spot for 30 some years, and it's never done it, but it was cool. I'll tell you that much. It was an experience.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And the funniest thing is I was experiencing it alone. I thought I was with my wife, and she was halfway down the block.
It was just meant for you.
Just like, you just stay with
That's
the orb.
that's what I
I'm
mean.
going to the school.
Yeah. And then, like, when we talk about things, you know, in Discord and on you know, the night shift like this, you know, synchronicities, and I told her, I said, when we got home, I said, I'm not going to say anything to my son. I'm not going to say anything, just between you and me. Like, this is, and she goes, well, what about Holosky? I'm like, yeah, maybe I will. I'm like, maybe I'll call tonight. And the first thing that happened, you guys start talking about that. I'm like, all right, I have to now.
Yeah.
Like, I have to. Like, it happened. So
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was
awesome.
fun.
Maybe you'll start saying it more.
I'm not gonna object to it. But I'm open to it. You know, I think we all have the experience the ability to experience it. It's just once you reach that state of mind where you're open to maybe anything's possible.
Absolutely.
Maybe it just kind of manifests. But
yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna let somebody else call, but I thought this was an important time. It happened, like I said, like 6:30 today.
That's awesome.
Congratulations on your orb.
My orb, my first orb of the sky.
Yes. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. Yeah, everybody have a good night and enjoy, stay safe, and stay weird.
You as well.
You as well, brother.
All right. Thank you for everything.
Always.
What I was going to tell you guys while we wait if anybody else calls, but what I was going to tell you guys is, like, if you watch the History Channel, what they put EEGs on Chris's mind, or on his head. They put it on his head while he was interacting with these orbs, and this is what they said. You can see on the EEG that right when these orbs come, his mind goes into a state of flow state, and it goes into a deep meditative state that's similar to a monk that has been studying meditation for a long time. And it goes into like these theta waves, and it goes into all these different waves that were not normally in a normal state of mind. So that makes me wonder if, like, when we go, like, people meditate all the time, they say that they get knowledge and they get like all these things. Yeah. And it's almost like, what if that is you tapping into other dimensions by meditating, getting your mind to different waves? Because they even talk about dream state. When we get into REM, we're in a totally different wave, and where time, space, all that stuff doesn't exist, you know?
Right.
It's almost like, why do we need to sleep at night? why do we need to go into these other
sleep is
worlds?
good.
We get
Sleep is good.
But I'm wondering, like, do we go into other dimensions? Because there is proof that our thoughts actually go in and out of other dimensions. They've actually proved this with science, that our thoughts and memories and stuff go in and out of this dimension. And so it's almost like when we sleep, are we going into other dimensions? Maybe Chris is able to communicate with these things because he goes into a certain meditative state, and it's, I don't know, it's
I can get behind that.
and it's like you reach this certain wavelength because maybe each dimension is a wave, you know?
I can get behind
I
it.
don't know. I don't
I've always
know.
had this theory that like our consciousness plays more of a part in the phenomena than we could ever possibly imagine. Because if you think about a lot of times when people mention experiencing all these different entities, and it's
Got a
like,
phone call coming in, Steve.
copy that. Hold that thought.
Hold the thought. Hey, welcome to the night shift. What's going on?
Yo.
Hey, what's up? Thanks for taking my call, guys.
Absolutely.
I got something I've been kind of wanting to get off my chest for a while. It doesn't really fit with the theme of the show, but it's been a super interesting show, and I thank you guys for it. I grew up as a child seeing spirits and entities and things like that, and kind of left me in my adult life. Now I have young kids, and it's kind of moved on to my son. I've got tons of stories from my childhood and things like that I could share, but my main concern is my child. He started off a couple of years ago seeing the Hat Man, and he had never heard of the Hat Man. He doesn't listen to these podcasts and never share those kind of scary things with him. And he described the Hat Man to me to a T. And it mentioned some things, and I kind of look at everything with a Christian worldview. So, I talk to him about how to like rebuke those things and how to cast them out in the name of Jesus. And I understand not everybody believes in that, but that's what we do. But about a year ago, he was in my bed sleeping, and it was, 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. And he stands straight up, stiff as a board, and points in the corner of the room and says, "There's two people," and he's scared to death. And it scared the absolute shit out of me. I sit up in bed, I'm looking, trying to see it. I can't see anything. And, he's pointing them out. We talked a little bit more about it and how to call those things out and call in the name of Jesus and try to comfort him and get him back to sleep, like a dad would do. But it bothered me because I could tell he was scared. I could tell he was totally, totally terrified. To maybe 2-3 months later, I started getting attacked in my sleep. It started first with I've never really experienced sleep paralysis, but I think this was probably the closest thing to it. It was kind of awoke in the middle of the night to this ugly woman type thing sitting on my chest and strangling me off my bed. The strange thing about it is I had no fear. I wanted to fight this thing. And it's choking me. I can't breathe. In previous times to that, I'd woken up in the middle of the night and was gasping for air, and my wife was trying to wake me up, and I couldn't breathe. Woke up absolutely winded, tears in my eyes, and all this stuff. And but this particular conflict that we had, she was choking me over the corner of my bed and tried to spit something in my mouth. I remember vividly, it almost felt like a piece of metal hit me on the front of my teeth because my teeth were gritted. And whatever she tried to spit in my mouth never made it in my mouth. Eventually got to my senses and, called on the name of Jesus, and it went away. Cut to a couple of days later, now keep in mind, my son said he's seen two people at this point in time. It was almost like a sleep paralysis thing, but it was like another attack, but it wasn't a woman, it was a man this time. And we commenced the fighting kind of in this dream state that I was in or whatever it was. But I remember looking at the guy and thinking, all right, now I got you. and this whole experience, I'm not trying to make myself sound brave or courageous or anything like that, but I just wanted to take these things out for the sake of my kid. And I remember, facing this thing down and grabbing a hold of it. And we come to blows in this dream, not like a full physical fist fight, but as soon as we made contact, I woke up. He hasn't had any experiences since these two conflicts. But I'm concerned that, this is going to continue. There's some things that go on in my house and things that I see that, like I've seen a little girl walking down the hallway when no one's home. We live in the middle of nowhere on an old kind of reclaimed farmhouse type deal. But, I'm concerned about my son. I'm just kind of curious if you've heard anything like that, what I can do to continue to combat it. We train them up. My kids, I don't discount anything my kids say because of my previous experiences, which are, as you look back in your life and you look at your paranormal experiences and you kind of discount them. You're like, but if you really sit down and examine them through this lens, this worldview now that I have, there was some wild stuff that went down, I just want to equip my kids and equip myself to take this stuff out, and I've never had anything fail, even in my younger days, where I couldn't call on the name of Jesus Christ and stuff just completely dissipate. But I just kind of wondering if you've ever heard of anything like that. I appreciate you guys' time. I'll hang up and take your answers unless you guys have any questions.
No, I guess he hung up.
I wonder, man, I don't know.
I mean, in my mind, like I've heard scenarios similar to that, like happening, like when you talk about sleep paralysis and stuff like that. Like I've had sleep paralysis numerous times and I've seen entities during that time. And a lot of people that I've, talked to who've had sleep paralysis have experienced that. But also too, I just wonder if that is, if that has happened just from since moving into that house. I know that he's talking about how this happened to him when he was younger and then it went away and then it started happening to his son being in that house. I wonder if this is pertaining to the house itself because, people have had like priests or, somebody come into the house and like bless the house and eradicate that from the house. Because I know I've heard a lot of times that sometimes these energies or these dark forces attach to things and then they stay with those things. They don't necessarily follow people from place to place unless they attach to a person. But, if this is a house thing, it might be beneficial to have somebody come in and bless your house,
Yeah, that's a good point.
That was going to be my first recommendation. He said he was already religious. I would find somebody that you trust, clergy, preacher, whatever. See if they would come in and bless the house. That way, at least you can, if it is geographical tied to the house, that should kind of lull it away. If it's something different, if it's something generational, I think you have to go about it a little differently. And I'm not sure what way that would be, if I'm being honest.
Jesus Christ, the phone
And
line's blowing the fuck up right now. We've had 3 separate callers call it.
I'm trying. The spitting in the mouth thing is just
that's fucked up. I've never heard a night hag story like that.
And he said
and
something metal.
He felt it hit his teeth.
It immediately makes me think of something demonic because I've read possession stories where they will spit up pieces of nail.
Oh, I've heard that
from the
too.
Crucifixion.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah, I have heard that.
That's the first thing I thought of, and I'm like, that is disgusting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I would monitor that, and if there's like symptoms in that, and I would talk to some sort of,
and the fact that it's like
pastor,
physically attacking him, albeit in his sleep, whatever, that's pretty malicious. So the first thing I
feel like
would
those
do,
children too are a lot more open to, and that's why they get attacked more, and that's why a lot more kids have a lot of experiences, and then as they get older, the experiences kind of go away because they get kind of hardened to these types of things. But there are some things that actually just linger with someone throughout their life. But you know, I don't know.
And
That
I feel
one's
like these things feed off of our vulnerability. Wow.
Yeah.
Which now that he's a father, his children are going to be his biggest, the biggest crack in his armor is going to be his kids. And it also is playing off his possible sleep paralysis, where when I have sleep paralysis, I'm just like, I have an unfathomable fear. I've never seen
Yes.
anything
It's
outside
terrifying.
of never seen anything outside of what was going on when we were talking about the Bledsoe case, but mostly it's just me not being able to move and just like it's almost like a prey kind of fear. Like there's something there and it's like after me. I
Yeah.
never see it, I never hear it, but I know it's there. It's just ingrained inside of me. And I feel like these things kind of feed off that unexplainable fear. So
All right.
that's
Yep.
what I would do. I would try to
You got
eliminate
another
it.
call?
Yeah, we got another call. Hey, welcome to the night shift, old friend.
Yo.
Yeah, you know how I feel about religion and spirituality, but if a night hag tried to spit in my mouth, bro, it would be
You into that?
spiritual warfare. It would be spiritual warfare on another level. I would be getting a priest, I'd be getting a rabbi, I'd be getting a guru, whatever it took to clean that house. And yeah, I've heard of night hags doing wild stuff, but spitting something in somebody's mouth is on a whole nother level.
It's crazy, man.
Gross. It's terrifying. Gross.
It
But
is.
I don't know if anybody had any suggestions because he asked for suggestions, but
I think I'm with
if it's
Steve
on
and
that,
Avery.
Blasting.
Yeah, I think I'm with Steve and Avery that you got to get somebody in there to bless that home.
yeah,
I mean,
concur.
I got to give the dude props. It sounds like he fucked up the first two entities that came at him. Like he laid the hammer down on him, which so mad props to you for just standing up and going to town. But bro, like
Off topic, I just had deja vu, and I feel like this has all gone down before.
it probably has.
Anyway.
It probably has.
it just
I get
hit
that
me.
a
I'm like,
lot.
I've seen those curtains somewhere. Yep.
Yeah, I get that a lot. So now that you three have come together on the Bledsoe, do any of you feel any different than you did before you started the conversation? And if so, what differences do you see now? Because I feel, before you go into it, Steve, I feel like Chiller was going into it with a certain perspective until you and Kyle shared your experiences with, what happened to you. So I thought maybe there would be a difference in thought there now.
I'll say something about that really quick, because I came at this definitely in a certain perspective with underlying thoughts that have been crossing my mind for a while. And Steve and Kyle played on those thoughts and brought them up and kind of made a point of those things that I was trying to kind of like, I was trying to paint this more in a experience, like my experience, like this was a good experience, and it's kind of made me question a lot more about now that I've had that experience. But then they brought up points that played on some of the ulterior narratives going on in my mind that now kind of rose those up, where I'm kind of like, okay, well, now I need to start really weighing out and not just like traveling off into one perspective, if that makes sense. So yeah, I would say that now now I have more questions for them that are going to allow me to kind of dive into that more, especially when I talk to Ryan here in a few weeks.
Yeah, you'll go in there armed, which would be great.
And be like,
You know, you'll
listen,
right,
okay, I
right,
got some questions.
and I don't. I think my opinion's the same.
They're great
I'm
people.
I'm still hopeful that it's nothing but positivity. I really am. Just my gut pushes me in a different direction. And that could be just that I'm fucking cynical sometimes, you know. I don't take a lot of things at face value. It could just be simply that. But I hope that it's nothing but good for Mr. Bledsoe and all the Bledsoes. I wouldn't want anything negative to happen to him at all whatsoever.
Absolutely. And I hope that they're not even being taken advantage of,
Yeah.
like
Oh
that,
yeah, absolutely.
because that's a good possibility as well, with all of
Yeah.
these CIA, government, NASA officials that are
Fucking
surrounding them
think about
You
that.
got a lot
and maybe
of
pumping their brain full of a lot of things as well.
Right.
manipulative entities, and they're definitely on this planet. They're not from
Right.
other dimensions.
Yeah, we're really fucking good at that.
Yeah.
I'm right
And
where I was, Twiz, before we even talked about it. I think I called it what I call it, interdimensional Stockholm syndrome, and I think I'm just right there with it. It seems like he is comparing his experiences to stories and stuff from the Bible. But then if you dig in to different things, you what was it? Brotherhood of the Snake. Like they're essentially saying that the Bible is a manipulation tool. If you read into the theory that Jimmy Carter was briefed on UFOs and it left him in tears because he was such a religious man, and the information he got was that these entities created all religions to manipulate mankind. He's kind of getting all of his positive references from the Bible, which if it was used as a manipulation tool from these entities, then that does him no good. It's just as bad as it was before.
Yeah.
So, like
Well,
I
I mean,
said,
he definitely does state that that there are elements of the Bible that are true, but it has been totally taken over and manipulated in ways where we don't understand Jesus the right way, and all these different types of things. And I can kind of get on board with that in a way, but I also get kind of scared because that's also the narrative that's pushed by a lot of like occult and esoteric and different types of philosophies as well, that I don't know, my mind's all fucked up in this whole arena, because it's like you have so many different narratives and you don't know which one is true, but there's so much evidence that can be created to make all of them true, so what do you believe?
I'm with Kyle, especially when it comes to the dog. I mean, yeah, you hear of two really only the two, Lazarus and Jesus, that came back, even when I think, if I'm getting it right, Abraham was supposed to kill Isaac on the mountain and God stopped him right before he did. I mean, that's all Old Testament stuff. I don't see why, if the thought process is we are going with, okay, it's Christianity, it's God, it's Jesus, we're living under a whole set of new rules. I don't see why this entity, however it would choose to interact with the Bledsoe, Chris Bledsoe, or whoever, would choose to use that manner of showing itself. I mean, you would think that it would be on faith in what he's seen, not necessarily having to kill his dog. It's just, and if it is, this is where I'll leave you. If it is God or Jesus or whatever that this is interacting with, and these are the tactics it's using, God help us all when the real devils and Satan shows up, because that's some cold stuff that God is supposedly using and works to prove himself.
Well, one thing I will say is that he didn't actually know exactly how this dog got his throat slit. So it very well could be different variables. You know, if we want to think about a physical form, if something happened that we don't know, like he never said that, like, you know, he witnessed this dog's throat being slit or that he witnessed how it even went down, but he believes that maybe it could have happened from the entity to prove that he has healing abilities. What if this is like, what if something evil did that and he was given the powers of good to heal it? You know, it's like almost like there's variables that we just don't understand in that story, and we're kind of jumping to a certain conclusion in that potentially, you know.
I mean, if that's the case, if there are, I could have swore it was a definitive in my research that the entity did this, that, and the other. But who to say that I didn't read it wrong, didn't present it wrong? There's a million possibilities there. But
At least in this book that he's written, that's how he lays it out.
okay, so that's 100% fair. If there are unseen variables, you know, you could say the dog clipped its neck on a barbed wire fence, whatever the case may be, and then it runs, it's running into its safety, it's bleeding, and then the entity then saves it. Okay, well, that's a whole different fucking spin on
Right.
the narrative there, right?
Right.
So maybe there are puzzle, and me and Steve have always said that there might be puzzle pieces. Well, I'll take that back. There are obviously puzzle pieces that we don't have because it is not our story. We do not hold all the cards. They hold all the cards, right?
Yeah.
There could be way more information that they have neglected to mention or don't want to mention or can't mention, right?
Yeah. And sometimes we're so convoluted by our own perception, you know.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
I try to be that person who tries to, unless it's like verified, you know, I'll try to have some other aspects or way of looking at something. So I don't know. I mean, I'll have to look into that more, but that's something I'll ask. Definitely.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It's wild.
It is.
But thanks for coming on. Thanks for letting me call in, guys. Thanks for coming on, Joe Aquarium's awesome episode. And I'll leave you guys with that.
Thanks for calling in, Quiz.
Yeah, stay safe,
All
brother.
good. Always. Later, guys.
Later.
I like this whole phone thing. I feel like I'm just gonna hang out now at nighttime, being like, anyone want to call me?
It's cool.
Hey.
It's cool.
It's a good time.
It is a good time. Like I said, some nights it's just smashing. Some days we've had some pretty fucking crazy calls.
Do you guys typically do it on the same night?
Wednesday nights.
Or Wednesday
nights. Yep.
That's awesome.
We usually run for, this is about as long as we go, about 2 hours, since we have to get up and go to work and everything. But yeah, we do 8:00 Wednesday nights. Usually it's just me and Steve. We talk about some weird shit in the beginning, and then open up the lines and see what's popping.
That's awesome.
It's a lot of fun. And then we will take, like, in, you know, with you too, we take the episode and then repost it to the podcast, so that way everybody gets to hear it. You just get an added benefit of being here live because you can communicate with us and call in and all that jazz.
Yeah, that's cool.
So it's a good time.
I'm learning all this cool stuff.
Yeah,
that you can do.
You can do a lot. You just got to be able to carve out the time and
exactly
and dedicate to it. Yeah,
that's the issue, is time.
Yeah, telling me. It's crazy. And
some people think you could just pump an episode out and just put it out. And I'm like, it's like a full-time job, man.
Oh man. And legitimately, I don't think me and Steve have missed a drop in a very, very long time. I don't know if we've ever taken vacation from it.
That's unbelievable.
Been a couple times where we've been sick
in 2 years.
But there's been a couple times we missed 6, but that's about it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and
you guys have a great
dedicated.
podcast.
Well,
I mean, I have listeners too who heard you guys on my podcast and are now avid followers of you guys.
Yeah, I just saw somebody in the chat that was saying that earlier. Like, I found Holosky from Avery, so that's awesome. That is dope.
Yeah.
It's cool that we get to help each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how it should be.
I agree. I'm actually going on the Tinfoil Hat podcast at the end on the 27th of this month.
Oh, that's
That's
dope.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's dope.
That's
I'm
awesome.
pretty
Hopefully
stoked.
it's huge for you.
I'm pretty stoked to talk to Sam. You know, it's one of those things where you like listen to people for a really long time and then all of a sudden you're like on their show.
Yeah.
You're like, this is really cool.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I love his show too. I've been a big fan of it. So
That's where I heard you guys,
yeah.
the Egress Industries, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I got to learn more about this story. I love it.
All right, Steve, you ready to shut her down?
Yeah. It's about that time, Hollow Cult. We will wrap it up. Avery, if you want to tell everybody where they can find your show. And
Absolutely. Oh, sorry.
no, that's all right. Go for it.
All right. Well, I have you can find me basically on any podcast platform, Chiller Queen Podcast. You can also find me on YouTube. I don't post a lot of stuff on YouTube. I'm doing a David Hamblin series where you can watch a 15-minute preview right now of this case that I'm working on. It goes into like it's an actual case that's going on right now. In Provo, Utah. It's a ritualistic abuse case. It's pretty crazy. But I also have my premium Rockfin channel, and that's where you watch the full episodes on video. And then I also have, you can find me on Instagram, Chiller Queen Podcast. You can also go to my website, chillerqueenpodcast.com. And also you can find me at A Very Dope Cook on Instagram as well. That's my personal profile. Yeah, that's where you can find me.
Hell yes. You know what to do, Hollow Cult. That being said, thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Make sure to support all of our creator friends that hang out with us every Wednesday. And yeah, just thanks for kicking it. So until we meet again, stay safe, stay weird, and check out the Chiller Queen podcast.
Thank you.